record. Welcome to those that are new to the community this month. So it's lovely to see some new faces. As we shared on the Mighty Network, today we're doing a session on programme delivery approach, and Perry is going to share with us today some reflections of a programme manager. Now, those that are in a delivery programme role, I'm sure you can all echo this sentiment. No two programmes are the same. And Perry will give his honest account of how he's navigated complex programmes with high stakes and high value across the Just Eat community. I'm going to hand over to yourself, Perry, to share your screen and take the group through this.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Ellie. And hello, everyone. Really good to. So, like Ellie said, I'm going to do a presentation on my reflections as a program manager. Let me get started. So today's session, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's really good to be part of this Women in Tech community. It's really good. I feel kind of for the opportunity to share my thoughts about programs with you. Feel free to be brave during the session. Ask questions. Either feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat and we'll pick them up. Ask them as we go along if you have any questions. I will try and keep us to time. If we need to move on from certain questions, if that's need to be, then I'll do so. And I may not have all the answers. Like Eddie said, every program is different, and as much as possible, and if we're all happy and we're all okay to, I'm happy for this to be a kind of like, if I don't have the answer, or and someone else does, feel free to chip in and say, hey, this is how I'd do it if that is. So yeah, without further ado, it's a little bit about me. So I'm a technical program manager at Just Eat. I've had 17 years in the industry, a little bit of a squiggly career. I studied computer science in Bristol. I did the kind of software development thing for a little bit. Then I moved into kind of software delivery and project management, and I've also trained as a career performance coach as well. That's not all about me. I'm also a dad, a husband, and an amateur guitarist. And you can see that's a picture of my my beautiful family as well. The socials down there if you do want to get in touch with me outside of this as well. I was wondering whether or not to share this, but given the fact that this is a kind of open space for all friends, if you're doing a presentation and you want to get the audience on your side, do show a little bit of vulnerability like I have just then. Introduce a little bit of a kind of an intro to a part of you that people may not know in the kind of current context. So there you go. I hope I've endeared myself to you enough now. But like I said, let's get on to the actual what we're here to talk about. So reflections of a program manager. At Just Eat, I had the responsibility of rolling out some alcohol age verification functionality across our market. So like you can see at the bottom there, Just Eat operates across a number of markets, and my job was to roll out this kind of age verification functionality. How do we make sure that the person buying alcohol on our platform is of the relevant age? Now, very complex landscape. This was, like you say, a lot of numerous markets, aligning 15 or so agile development teams, complex business processes and regulatory change needed. As you can imagine, the way that Germany handles alcohol age verification from a legal perspective may well be quite different from the way the UK does it, might be the way different from the way France does it, etc. So very kind of complex a set of business rules and business lines to kind of think of, alongside having to kind of work with multiple teams across the business. Say you've got legal, marketing, finance, all these teams that you need to kind of manage as well. So that's it. The approach, you probably wouldn't be surprised. Kind of start from set up, then through to initiation and planning, and then to execution, and then kind of closing and handing over the program. Now, I don't know about you if you're in the kind of project management space, but I like to think about closing the program actually at the start, and that's why that kind of bar at the bottom is stretched across all of them. I think it's really important to think about how you're going to close the program when you start. And I'll come on to that a bit later when I talk about program closure, but that's why that bar is where it is at the moment. Now, like I said, in an ideal world, you'd start at the beginning and then you kind of move through all the way through to execution and handover. But this program wasn't that. And I think, like Ellie alluded to at the start, no program is the same. When I jumped into this program, I landed in a situation whereby little bits and pieces had been done already, not fully completed. We'd done a bit of a rollout in one of our markets already. That was being taken through to handing over and completion, all a little bit of helter-skelter, to be honest. But what I would say, if you ever find yourself in that situation or any situation, I think communication is key. Identify your stakeholders early and engage with them regularly. I suppose to some degree, establish your own kind of ground zero, establish where your own starting point is. Even in the maelstrom, you've got to kind of get your head into for yourself. I'll stop there for any questions. Susan is looking at questions from the chat. If you just drop them into the chat. I can't see everyone. The way Teams is, I'm just seeing my presentation, so I can't see you if you are raising your hand or anything, but please do feel free. Okay, I'll continue if no one has anything to ask so far. Right, so setting the program up and laying the foundation for effective delivery. I think it's really important to articulate and clarify the whys behind the program, and I'll come on to that a little bit later, especially why the why is such an important thing going forward as a program management community. Identify the sponsor. It's really key to understand who actually wants the change, and then defining specific goals and how they fit into the company's wider vision. The key challenges with the program that as I inherited it, we didn't actually have a program sponsor, which was a little bit tricky, trying to get started with no one identified as the person who actually wanted it. And as you can imagine, a company of Just Eat size, information was disparate and varied, and you had lots of different stakeholders. If you think about how we might want to do age verification, there's obviously the person who's buying the alcohol. We have to engage with them, but there's also the delivery driver who's having to kind of do the check once they kind of get to the customer's door. We have stakeholders in risk, compliance, legal, all around the shop. So very, very kind of program set up. Timeout. I think it's worth thinking, as I kind of go through this, there'll be one or two kind of like bits where I say, hey, I'll give you a little bit of an anecdote before I kind of continue. Like I mentioned, the information was varied across the business about how we do alcohol delivery, who has a stakeholder in it, and everything. And so one of the things that actually worked quite well was asking the whole company for input. Now you might be thinking, company of Just Eat, I know how many thousands of people we have. You might think that's a bit of a crazy thing to do. It was. I sent out, we had like a general Slack channel with X number of thousand people in it, and at the time I was having information come in drips and drabs in different places, and trying to formulate a cohesive view as to how the company is going to do alcohol delivery was just becoming a little bit unwieldy. So I can up the stakes and increase the unwieldiness a little bit by just asking the whole company, if you have an interest in alcohol delivery, reach out to me and the team. Surprisingly, that worked really well. We did get inundated with a flood of kind of people saying, hey, we thought about this, I want to know about that, etc. But one of the good things that did was to actually give us who's our fan base, basically. Who are the people that we want to talk to, who we want to reach out to, what information is out there. So I'm not saying that will work in every situation, but given the position that we were in, we had to move at pace, and we had to kind of assimilate this information as to how we're working really quickly. That kind of worked for us after all the feedback, but it was good. I'll pause for any questions if there are any. Nope. Okay. Right. So back to the program setup and what that looks like. Aligning with business goals was really key. We had a North Star driven by a program sponsor. Deliver this piece of functionality by growth season, which is the part in Just Eat's time of year when orders start to ramp up. We want to kind of take advantage of the fact that orders start to increase at a certain point in the year. We wanted to take advantage of that. We also wanted to ensure that we were addressing any compliance issues in the way that we currently delivered alcohol as well. A few guardrails that we had. One is, from a logistics perspective, we wanted to ensure that our driver efficiency was not negatively impacted. You can imagine Just Eat being a business that really depends on on our delivery drivers. We wanted to make sure that their efficiency wasn't impacted, and obviously we wanted to make sure that we satisfied legal requirements across all of our markets. So how did we do that? We set ourselves and established some measurable key performance indicators, or KPIs. For the North Star of just getting this out the door, we ensured that we had we knew which clients were actually going to benefit from this piece of functionality. We obviously knew that we were time bound by growth season, and also bound by, or cognizant of, fiscal possession. So what does it mean, to our bottom line as well? Often this is harder to measure, but it's useful to have a good focal point as to kind of what the opportunity cost is, what the opportunity is. We also wanted to fix specific gaps in our business processes. Like I said, make kind of KPIs around our driver performance, and obviously get the green light from food and safety, legal, risk, compliance, etc. As well. Right, then we manage our trade-offs in terms of market priorities and development team priorities, because obviously, a company like, any company, your program or project isn't the only thing that's going on. So you have to make sure we're kind of managing that, managing how we do business change, and indeed the implementation of it, and what is our risk. How risk averse or risk compliant do we want to be? And that obviously just feeds into good program governance. Now, if you had been on if you'd seen in any of the kind of my LinkedIn updates around this, one of the things I did want to talk about was, as part of this kind of trade-off discussion that we're having, we often think about the iron triangle. Now, I say update because I kind of put this in after this presentation. I've done this presentation before, and I've kind of updated this presentation with this kind of my thinking around what we're calling the iron triangle of project management. Now, if you're not aware, three key things in a project or program. One of them is time, so the schedule of when the project is going to be delivered, the scope, what you're building, and the features within it, and the cost or resources. How much is it going to cost you? And those are three variables you can think about when building or running a project or program. Now, the reason why I'm saying goodbye to it, I mean, that's probably a bit of clickbait. I'm not saying definitely goodbye, but actually we probably need to evolve from just thinking about time, cost, and scope. But also, so many times I kind of see projects or programs where we don't consider two other really key factors. The first is the why we're doing it. I've been on many programs where we say, let's just go and do it. Let's build some, go off and then define the scope. How big is it going to be? What features do we want to have? This is the time this is where it has to be done by, this is how much it's going to cost us. But seldom we think as to why we're doing it. What is the opportunity around it? Now, the next thing that we often don't factor in too heavily, especially at the start, are the risks. Now, obviously, we always, as a program community, we have, our risks, actions, issues, and decisions log, our RAID log. But often we don't think about why shouldn't we do it. And that play into our thinking as well. And I think that's really important. All fed, I think it's really important to be thinking about, why are we doing it? What is the opportunity we're tracking, and why not? All fed in through to by the cost of delay. What is the if we don't do it, what's that costing us? What's the opportunity cost we're missing out? Now, total transparency. This isn't something I've come up with off the top of my head. As you can see at the bottom there, really good book called Risk Upfront: Managing Projects in a Complex World by Adam Josephs and Brad Rubenstein. They go into this in a lot of detail. I thought it was just worth sharing because I think it is good to start thinking a lot about how we kind of manage that iron triangle, or actually, before we start, have we clearly defined what the why is and the why not. Right, I won't go through this. Ooh.
Perry just had a question. With the trade-off star, is there a difference between benefits and opportunity?
Between benefits and opportunity. Well, I'm going to leave this slide up for a second, but I wonder if the person asking the question could clarify when we say benefits, are we talking about the scope or something else?
Hi, so you mentioned that usually at the beginning of projects, people, based off on your trade-off star, is always time, cost, and scope, but you're introducing opportunity and risk. So I was wondering, when you say opportunity, why does that form part of the benefits from the beginning when you're scoping, or is it something else in addition to the benefits? I'm just trying to understand where it all fits.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I get the question now. Yes, I think definitely the benefits would come as part of that opportunity. So what is it going to do for us if we build this product, or we kind of engage on this particular product or program? That the benefits to it definitely factor in. Like I say, what are the commercial opportunities we're looking to exploit? That's a definite benefit. Who are we doing this for as well? Is something we sometimes don't really engage too much in. Or I've been in products and programs where we don't really think about that.
Right.
Or actually, are we targeting a bigger market or smaller market segment? Are we going into that detail? But yeah, really good question. I think the benefit does definitely form part of that why.
I think Ellie has a
Yeah.
comment as well.
Hey, Ellie.
I'm really curious on the alcohol program, because we've used that as an example today, like how you go about managing risks with stakeholders to find a pathway forward that isn't a compromise but collaboration.
Yes. Yeah, good question. So on the alcohol program, we definitely had, give an example, what we wanted to do was not build a product that satisfied the legal requirements for every single market down to a T, because that would mean the solution becomes so unwieldy. So what we had to do is we had to build the lowest common denominator that satisfied all of the markets. But naturally, that presents a bit of risk as well, because we may not have been 100% totally compliant in a certain market, but we covered ourselves just enough. So how we manage that? I think a lot of this is around communication and conversation, and taking this to the risk team and taking it to our sponsor to say, hey, this is the situation. We know that it is out of bounds our scope to build a generic solution for every single market, and then respond to every single market's change whenever that happens. However, we do need to ensure that we are meeting the requirements of markets, so that we are managing the risk to us as a business. And so that specific example, it was having regular conversations with our stakeholders, especially with compliance and risk, and our commercial teams as well. On a broader level, really good management of your risks and issues log, your RAID log, to the relevant stakeholders, and being able to flag issues quickly with them. So yes, hopefully that answers your question. Please do come back at me.
I'm more keen to hear other people's perspectives, because I was very close to the work you were doing with alcohol. But yeah, I know some of the challenges you went through there, so it's really interesting to hear about how you brought people on the journey.
Yes. No, yeah, thank you. And I mean, and maybe let's open it up to everyone feels comfortable, brave enough to kind of give their their kind of experience of managing risks in a complex environment. Does anyone have any thoughts about how they ensure that they are managing risk with their stakeholders, ensuring, like Eddie was saying in the question, that collaboration is still maintained? Does anyone have good tips on how to manage risks in your projects or programs?
I can probably share something I use quite a lot actually with the teams that I work with, which I think is a simple but effective way of drawing alignment. I'm keen for some emojis on this point as well. How many people work on programs of work where people say, I want this delivered by the 15th of October? And that number that date just feels like it's been plucked out of the air and you've got to try and make it fit in. Can anyone resonate? And that can feel really suffocating, particularly when you're like early on in your career, because you want to do a great job and you want to get it right, and you perhaps don't want to go into any form of confrontation with a senior stakeholder that has told you that it's got to happen by this date. But something that I've used a lot to really help drive that sense of joint planning and joint collaboration is, if the date is that date, what needs to be true to achieve a successful outcome? So Perry mentioned it at the start in a slightly different way, but working backwards from your go live, what would need to be true to hit that? Because then that enables people to really understand the risk and impact. And sometimes what needs to be true to deliver that is actually, I need a completely new team to deliver that, and this is the cost of that team, and this is the cost of delay. It allows you to like balance out different scenarios to have more collaborative conversations around a pathway to a go live. So I'd really think, what needs to be true to ensure a successful outcome?
Awesome, thank you, Eddie. Yeah, what needs to be true in order to hit date, and that does often expose a lot of the questions that might surround the. Oh, yeah, thank you. Any other? Oh, Christine, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just thought I could add to what Ellie said there, really. It made me think of one of a complex program I delivered that was into multiple businesses within a business. And what I found was that I had to spend an awful lot of time doing that stakeholder management, far more than I had to. And effectively, what it did was it informed the changing of the plan and lots of sub-deliveries, because I had to align to the demands of each of those sub-businesses or departments and the pressures and deliveries that they were in. So it wasn't just one delivery plan of here's how we're doing it across the organisation. It ended up being broken down into lots of small ones, but it effectively defined my phase delivery. But I needed to do that because they had other deliveries and demands to deliver their own products, because this was a generic one for the whole of the organisation. And I needed consistency, but I needed to do it on their terms. So that kind of increased the complexity, but actually also increased my likelihood of success. And so while I spent about 50% of my time working with each of the business areas, stakeholder management, understanding what they're doing, helping them to understand the benefits, it actually paid off. And it was perhaps the one that was the biggest from a point of view of stakeholder management. And what I'm actually talking about here is delivering Microsoft 365 to 17,000 people. And I had to pick it into those different areas. And it wasn't a priority for them, but it was a priority for the organisation. And I just had to be flexible. So whether that type of programme is a difference, it's not a compliance programme, it's more of a central consistency and saving costs type programme, and whether that dimension helps in the conversation here.
No, 100%. Thank you for sharing that, Christine. And that also speaks what you're saying to really good dependency management as well, because you've got to be thinking about all the relevant things to kind of get things aligned. So thank you. Okay, amazing. Well, thank you everyone for those contributions. I'll keep going, but if you do have any more questions or thoughts as we go, like we just did, please do share. Right. So initiating the program, getting the right governance set up so that we can be successful. So at the heart, I feel, of every good program is a good team, and for this one, the key responsibilities or roles that I had to liaise with were obviously my sponsor, me as part of we have business analysis, BA, and engineering. Now, typically, you may also have a product element as well. For this one, product wasn't as key because the product pretty much had been built. It was more the rolling out and more the kind of business end of the product, and that's why I haven't got product definitely here. Like I was saying, no two projects are the same, and you've got to think about who do you need on your core team. Right, I won't go through all of this. I know this is quite, this is a lot of stuff on a slide. The one key thing I would say, as you kind of look through those things, key thing I would say is around governance. I feel every program needs just enough governance in order to be successful. And I don't feel like for every project you need a full shebang of agile Prince 2 or what have you around it. Especially if your project's going to last, for example, you may not need to go the full shebang in terms of all the kind of bits and pieces that you need around program governance. Some programs you may well do, and some, especially if you are slightly more highly regulated industry, you may need to have very good and very strong kind of information governance, risk management, etc. Very well documented, all those right things in place. I would just say installing just enough governance for what your program needs, and you need to kind of define what you need to work out what's needed, especially in fast-paced industries whereby there's a lot of need to move at pace. You may just need to kind of think about what your structure is going to look like, and what rhythms you have, weekly meetings, kind of steering committees and that kind of thing. So definitely getting yourself set up with just the right governance is key. Obviously, then as part of this program, making sure I had cross-organizational alignment, making sure I had all the relevant business stakeholders, product and tech or P&T stakeholders, ensuring this was a priority for their teams and trying to navigate that as well. I think Christine, you mentioned this may not have been a priority for everyone at that time. How do you still deliver on your project program to ensure you're successful as well? And to do that, I think the best thing is conversation. I know sometimes it's you can sometimes think I just need to go to the top and have everyone just being told what to do. I like to kind of I think what works best is having that conversation, making the story, and then if needs be, kind of appealing to your sponsor to kind of help you kind of unblock certain things. But I think definitely having a conversation with them as well, and selling the story of what you're doing, and also what it might benefit that team as well. Right, and it's time to kind of get kicked off. Having every stakeholder invited. Sometimes in this kickoff meeting, you might just have a few people, you might just have your tech teams, but I think it's really important for your tech team to be conversing with your legal team, with your kind of marketing team, everyone in the room, so everyone's aligned at the same time as to what you're doing. You give them and align on what to achieve, and obviously have the opportunity for them to ask questions about it as well.
Perry, I've got a question for you on when you talked around like governance structure. I'm really curious, based on your experience, how you've shown adaptability as you've worked across different organisations, because I think you made a really valid point. All organisations have different ways of working. So if I speak for like when I've worked at Sainsbury's and Tesco, they've probably had a lot more governance than what is at Just Eat. So for those that are new to this group, we have sort of 4 levels between the bottom of Jet, and I hate using the word bottom, but like our more junior roles all the way up to our exec board. It's really flat. Whereas I remember working at Sainsbury's, I had about 6, 7, maybe even more levels. So like, how have you managed the differences in different organizations you've run? Like, what have been some of the key factors that you've thought about when thinking around how to structure your program?
Yeah, really good question. The first thing that comes to mind is, when you join a new organization, it's really important just to get a sense of the culture. You might get that straight off the bat. I know one of the companies before I joined Just Eat, I was working for a kind of a health tech company, and there you just know that there's a different bar of kind of governance and reporting and checks and balances that you need to go through when you're doing health tech than when you're kind of doing food. And so you might just get a sense of that straight off the bat. Also, I think it's worth just understanding the culture of the company as well, knowing, doing a little bit of research when you join the company, say, who are the people I need to speak to? What other programs have been run before? Just gauging the mood a bit, and that will start to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up to say, okay, if I'm running a program, I know that typically this is what's expected. Still, even every program within your organization is going to be different, but that's probably going to get you a little bit of a head start as well. So I think knowing the culture, knowing your organization, talking to relevant people who've done projects and programs before, but also speaking to the stakeholders, because for one project you might think, oh, I really need to get compliance on board, I really need safety on board, and they might say, doesn't really matter to me, just fill your boots. Having the conversations, knowing the right people to speak to, making connections in the company and networking, I think is important. That comes with, just as you get involved in the company, your initial time there, I suppose, understanding the rhythms and what have you of the organization, and that will help you formulate your program as well. But anyone else have any thoughts? Those are my thoughts on how to kind of navigate different projects and different types of organizations. Anyone else got any thoughts? No, cool. Okay. No, thank you, Ellie. Hopefully that answered the question, and I'll keep going. Right. So delivering at pace and scale. I think I mentioned this before, just to kind of go over this was, lots of different product teams, 10 central business teams, 14 markets, working across that. I think the key thing I'd say was the key thing for me was communication. I had a weekly market rollout meeting where I had a very clearly defined, hey, this is what you're going to get. This is which market's coming next. This is what they're going to get, backed up by a relatively comprehensive, documents which kind of could follow, whether or not you were a tech person or someone from legal, explaining what you were going to get, what they were going to get, and so making sure everyone was aligned. That core working group that I had, that kind of market rollout meeting, was central to the program. And despite the complexity, bringing everyone on board at the same time, that was key for me. Also backed up by kind of regular reporting and updates and that kind of thing. But I think that communication, especially at the pace that we needed to move at, that was key. Now, obviously, this slide is a lot is on here, so but don't worry. Those 3 rows that you can see towards the kind of second third of the screen illustrates some of the challenges that I was having with working with some of the product teams. You had some teams working in sprints, so agile sprints, once every 2 weeks, they would release something. Some teams working with Kanban with a continuous release flow, and some teams working to like our apps teams, working in sprints, but they have, as you maybe, if you've worked with app teams before, they have a definite release to the App Store, and from that point, your feature gets rolled out. And so one of the ways to navigate this is to say, hey, before your market rollout date, which you can see towards the right of the screen, ensuring that at whatever date that you're going live on, each particular team makes sure their cut of code or feature is ready before that, and then kind of progressing on to before then progressing onto the market rollout itself. Visibility, like you see at the top right, is key. Ensuring you have good kind of program management tooling behind you, and we use Jira and Asana to make sure that we're tracking excuse me, the work of the teams regularly and well. I would say, like I said, communication is key, because once everyone knows what's going on, then they can align around you as well. I'm going to move on. Okay, right. So time out again. What didn't go so well? A little bit of a kind of, this is, a kind of open, honest kind of time of reflection. One of the things that I was particularly worried about at the time was, I won't go into what the feature was, but owning up a feature that wasn't as expected, didn't perform as expected. We kind of did a rollout. We're all really happy, and then a certain feature that our sponsor worked in a certain way, someone kind of rang after the release and said, "Hey, this isn't working as you thought it was." And I was thinking, at that moment you're kind of thinking, crumbs, what do you do? This is such a high profile project. Your sponsors are kind of one down from the COO of the organization, and actually, honesty is the best policy. And I think not just in this, but wherever you are. I kind of went back to one of the people in my team and said, "Hey, both of us, how did we miss? Was it testing? Was it our analysis? Was it whatever?" And to be honest, it was just a genuine kind of oversight within the program. It wasn't a breaking feature, but it was something that certain markets wanted that we obviously didn't have at that time. So what we did, we worked out, okay, so how do we communicate this to our sponsor? We had to just own up, and this is the this is the problem that we've had. We missed this. These are the reasons why we missed it, but this is also the way that we're going to kind of get ourselves back on track. And thankfully we were able to chart a course that actually made sure that although it wasn't there on day one, we could get it in later on. But I think another key thing is, when you have a good relationship with your sponsor, then actually this conversation was actually quite easy. Well, it wasn't easy at the time. I was still sweating. That's why I kind of join the hangout. But actually, the relationship that I had with the sponsor meant that they were actually okay, and to be honest, they accepted that actually mistakes happen, and so an event. But yeah, there we go. Something that didn't work so well in this program, but we were able to recover from it relatively easily, but was a little bit of a hairy time at the time. All right. Okay, right. So coming towards the end, so program closure, and like I said, I find it easy to think of closure from the beginning. So at the start, the one thing that's really key, I think, for when I'm running a program, is to identify who the BAU, business as usual, owner is. So who's going to look after the product or the service once you're done. So identifying them early on, and then working with them throughout the whole program. So during the program, ensuring that they are ready to accept the change, and if there's any change in scope and what's needed, what you're releasing, making sure that you kind of you keep them fully abreast of what's going on, and also reviewing the business goals with them as well. And so when you come to close the program, actually it's more of a tick box exercise, because they actually know what's. So we had the formal handover with the BAU team, but actually nothing was a surprise, and I think that's really important. So whenever you're communicating to your stakeholders or to the BAU team or your steerco, or whoever, it's really important that nothing is a surprise to them. And so if you have that kind of engagement, as we close the program, it was more of a tick box exercise as well. Towards the bottom of that third block there, one thing that I think is really important as well when you're kind of closing the program is doing a retrospective. Often this gets missed because, you know, either you move on to the next project or what have you, but actually taking some time to reflect what works well and what didn't work so well. What could we have done better? And it's just really good practice because you can share it with your team, but also as a program manager, as a project manager, you can think, actually, I really didn't do stakeholder comms that well. Actually, there's this particular time where we missed a feature, and, you know, that got a bit sticky, or we didn't do this, you know, this thing happened, and which we could have navigated a little differently. That's a really important thing to go through with you and your project team. And then lastly, I think it's also important to celebrate your wins. Often the time we just move on to the next thing, but hey, it's worth taking the time back and, you know, celebrating the fact that you actually completed your project and the wins that's associated with it as well. Okay, cool. So what are my key takeaways? So the first item there is, you know, what made you successful previously may not make you successful going forward or in this project. That speaks to, you know, the fact that no two programs are the same, and the way that you run one program successfully may not exactly be the thing that makes you successful this time around. Especially, you know, in this program where I was just landed in the middle of a bit of a maelstrom of activity. Experience may not have, you know, what I did in previous projects wouldn't have worked in this one. And so being able to think quickly and be like, okay, I'm going to have to do something different. Establish your base of knowledge quickly. Like I said, with that being thrown into the deep end, establish your own kind of ground zero, assimilate information as quickly as possible. Also, like I said, just enough governance is important. And then think about who actually wants your project. We were stung by not having a project sponsor at the start. We were able to navigate relatively quickly. Well, in a few weeks. That's probably not that quick in the pace we had to move at, but we got it done. And then communicate really well. Communication is key as well. So those are my key takeaways. Thank you very much. Ellie, do you want to speak to the next session that's going on, or do you want to introduce the next session we're doing?
No, go for it, unless there's any questions on today's presentation.
So I'm interested to know how long the programme took from the point that you started to that getting to that celebrate point.
Yes, good question. So the programme was about, this was a while back, about four months, I'd say.
Oh, wow.
Finish.
I think Charlotte has a question.
Hey, Charlotte.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Perrin. I've taken away quite a few things, and it's definitely filled my knowledge gap in terms of what I do as a project manager compared to a program manager. But at what point do you think the transition is having a project and then turning, is it a certain, how am I going to ask this question? At what point is a project, should it be run as a program? So is there a certain duration or complexity level or certain amount of, you know, teams or stakeholders involved which would then touch the switch? Do you see what I'm trying to ask? I'm not really getting my words out very well.
No, it's helpful. I'm going to be slightly cheeky and ask that question to the group. What do we think? What are our thoughts? Hi, Hazel.
I can jump in. Oh, I can see Christine jumping in as well. My experience of when a project becomes a program is usually when you can see very clearly there's multiple projects or work streams that are contributing to a single outcome. So I recently was involved in managing a program at Guide Dogs, and it was to put in a new solution in our existing CRM. So we use Salesforce. But to do that, we had to put a single sign-on solution in. We had to put a new system in that would govern our direct debits, which was finance. We had to put in an upgrade to our website, and there was various other projects that were really all little projects. And at that point, it became a programme. It was a big programme of work. So that's my experience. Chris has got her hand up.
I would agree completely with Hazel. I think the definition at the beginning was that there are multiple deliveries that all contribute to that single outcome. I think there's the definition. I would also add to what Hazel said and say, think of it more from the user side, and really think about that change delivery as well. If there is a big complexity there, sometimes you've got more work to be done on the training and the culture side than the tech side, or sometimes there's more tech. And I think sometimes that balance between product delivery and change delivery is not always there. And that might sometimes tip the edge as well. But I don't think there's a definitive of it must be. I think sometimes you can have big projects because the deliveries underneath those are still there. So I think for me, there's a grey line where it's in there and it could be and it couldn't be.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Hazel. Thanks, Christine. I was going to chip in and give my thoughts, but I'll only be repeating exactly what Hazel and Christine said. So thank you. Right. Any more questions?
Nothing in the chat, just lots of thanks.
Cool. Okay. I'm glad this has been a benefit to everyone. But thank you again. Next session is going to be on the Friday, the 8th of November. One of our friends in our kind of organizer committee, Anna, she'll be talking about setting up a PMO, project management office, at portfolio level, and how a PMO can support a portfolio as well, and indeed what the future of a PMO might look like. So really interesting topic there. I'm going to be there, so I hope you will too. All that I have to say is thank you so much for the opportunity to chat to you about some of my experiences, and hopefully see you next time. And I'll hand over to Ellie to close.
Yeah, great. Hopefully everyone enjoyed today's session. I think Christine's already gone back on the chat further up. We will share these slides on the Mighty Network. Again, if anyone longer term is really interested in getting involved, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us on the network as well. We are working as a working group for the next 6 months, providing sessions. So any sessions that you're really passionate about or you'd like to hear something about, again, come back to us on that one. And if you're interested in getting more involved when it comes to a working group capacity, also please do reach out to us as we start to hand this over to some other budding program project PMO people early next year. Thank you for joining, everyone, and thank you, Perry. Thank you for running today's session. It was really great. Cool. Have a nice lunch, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.